Good morning and welcome to another episode of Live Without Limits, Unlock Your Potential, Ultimate Blueprint to Transform and Shift Your Mindset. In today's show, we're talking about embracing your worth, the essential journey to self love. And I'm thrilled to have you join us as we delve into a topic that is not only transformative, but also fundamental to our well being and happiness. We will explore the profound significance of self love, unravel its complex, and understand why it is an indispensable part of our lives. So settle in, take a deep breath, and prepare to embark on a journey that will bring you closer to embracing your true worth. And let's get a personal anecdote to quote about the importance of self love. What family has done, and let me explain to you what my family has done. I grew up in a family that was very, very dysfunctional. A mother that psychologically abused, emotionally and verbally abused, and a father that physically abused. My mother aligned with my younger sister because both me and my older sister have disabilities, and she was looked at as supposedly the perfect one. But let me tell you some of the things they did, and my mother didn't discipline her about it, and what she pulled. Now, as a teacher, she was in special ed, but after 19 years of teaching, she took off 3 years and then went back to finish up the last 11 years. And the reason for this is because supposedly she was a good teacher, but she never got along with the principals or the other teachers in the school, never stayed in the same school more than a year, maybe less. So, and always complained, oh, it was the principal's fault, it was this one's fault, it was that one's fault. Then, when she worked at Saks Fifth Avenue, she used to use their phone lines to call my mother long distance until they got wise and made all their employees put their IDs in. And then my mother would call Saks and spend 40 minutes on the phone just to talk to her for 5 minutes because at that time she was working as a receptionist. So she would be the one answering the phones in the credit department. And so she had to take other calls in between talking to my mother. Well, eventually she got fired from Saks Fifth Avenue also. But, and I could tell by the way she was talking about the company. And on my phone, or rather on my computer, I have a saying that comes from Carl Jung. It is not what happened to me, it is what I choose to become. Because if it was left up to my mother, I would have sat at home and kept her company all day doing nothing. And because that was not my personality, they were going to show me how they could control me through finances. And I found that as a young child, I had low self-esteem. But as I started to study psychology and mental health, I learned to pat myself on the back and show myself the love that I needed because there was never anyone. I can remember being that 12-year-old child who climbed out of the window and wanted to run away. I can also remember that I don't think only once in the 18 years that I was 18 when my father passed that he ever told me that he loved me. And my mother never ever said it once. The sad part is that they come from a home where they were never shown love, so they didn't know how to. That's why this is such a big topic, because if you've never been shown love, you don't know how to love yourself. And if you don't know how to love yourself, you don't know how to love anyone else. So there was a time in my life when I looked in the mirror and the reflection staring back at me was a stranger, someone who tirelessly sought approval and validation from others, leaving my own needs and desires unattended. It was a pivotal moment when I realized that the most profound relationship I could ever cultivate was the one with myself. The epiphany was encapsulated beautifully by the words of Lucille Ball, who said, "Love yourself first, and everything else falls into line." You really have to love yourself and get anything done in this world. This quote resonates deeply with me, and it underscores the truth that self love is not an act of selfishness, but rather the foundation from which we can build a life of fulfillment, resilience, and authentic happiness. And one of the things is, I already talked about my family, but if you understand psychology and if you understand transactional analysis, it talks about the child says, "I want," the adult says, "I'm able to," and the parent says, "You should." And remember this: when we hear something over and over again, we begin to internalize it. And if you're constantly having someone tell you, "You're worthless, you can't live on your own, you can't think for yourself, you're a bad person because you're not perfect," well, what happens? And you hear those things so many times that you internalize it. When you think of the laws of attraction, and it talks about those negative comments and how you can use affirmations to turn them around and change them so they become positive affirmations. Because if you're putting out negative vibes into the universe, then negative things are going to happen. If you put out into the universe those positive vibes, good things will happen to you. And learning how to love yourself is one of them. Self love is a term that's often tossed around in self help books and wellness circles, but its true meaning is frequently misunderstood. At its core, self love is about nurturing a compassionate and accepting relationship with oneself. It's the practice of acknowledging your worth, embracing your imperfections, and granting yourself the kindness and respect that you would offer to a dear friend. Unfortunately, there are several misconceptions about self love that can mislead us. One common myth is that self love is synonymous with narcissism or self absorption. However, this couldn't be further from the truth. Narcissism is a characteristic by an excessive need for admiration and a lack of empathy for others, whereas self love is about healthy self regard and emotional well being that allows us to connect with others more authentically. Another misconception is that self love means you're never critical of yourself. In reality, self love involves constructive self reflection and growth. It's about recognizing areas where we can improve without resorting to harsh self criticism or self punishment. Now, before I go further, I want to go back and discuss psychology and how in transactional analysis it talks about and think about the laws of attraction and how you can reprogram your thinking. And it also combines with what we talked about last week, which is the head trash, the things that people say to you that are negative that you keep internalizing over and over again. Because this is how we see ourselves. When I was in school, and now I have cerebral palsy, and cerebral palsy affects how the brain processes information. That when I learned more by taking the concepts and applying them than reading about them and listening about them and then taking a test and answering the test questions. So every one of us learn differently. And if a parent doesn't understand that, or they expect a child to, to be a certain way and don't understand the needs of each child as being different, then they can create and put into a child's head all of those negative things that they turn around and believe in. And it's how do you turn it around and learn and accept yourself just for who you are, because parents don't realize how they can negatively affect one person by the things they say, and how it can make someone else stronger. Because I've always been the type of person that, because of my disability, and always I didn't want to be dependent on other people, so it was important for me to try and do things for myself. I even taught myself how to tie my shoes with one hand. And constantly, especially, I can see it in my mother that she grew up in a home that was very negative. So she did not know how to be any different other than doing what her mother did, which was be negative. My grandmother was so negative that that my aunts and uncles wanted nothing to do with her. And my grandfather would get tired of it, take off and go traveling around, come home. And this was a cycle between them because he just didn't know. And you got to remember, in the very early part of the 20th century, you didn't hear about divorce the way you hear about it today. That relationships are built on mutual need and mutual respect. And if there's no respect between two people, that relationship is going to break down. Some believe that self love is a destination, a state of perfection to be achieved. This is misleading because self love is an ongoing process, a journey that evolves as we grow and change throughout our lives. It's not about reaching a point of where we no longer have challenges or doubts, but about maintaining a supportive inner dialogue and self care practices, regardless of life's ups and downs, by understanding what self love truly is and dispelling these myths. We can begin to cultivate a more loving and forgiving relationship with ourselves, which in turn enhances our relationship with others and our overall quality of life. Self love is the cornerstone of a fulfilling life because it influences every aspect of our existence. When we cultivate self love, we lay the foundation for a stronger, healthier relationship. It allows us to set boundaries, communicate our needs effectively, and engage with others from a place of confidence and self-respect. This in turn leads to a more meaningful and satisfying connection with the people around us. In this realm of career and professional development, self love is equally critical. It empowers us to recognize our strengths and leverage them to our advantage. It also encourages us to pursue opportunities that align with our passions and values rather than settling for less than we deserve. When we value ourselves, we are more likely to take risks, advocate for our interests, and achieve greater success. Self love has a profound impact on personal well being. It is the antidote to self criticism and negative self talk, which can lead to stress, anxiety, and depression. By practicing self love, we nurture our mental health, foster resilience, and cultivate a positive mindset. This enables us to face life's challenges with grace and embrace personal growth and self improvement. Self love is not just about feeling good about ourselves, it's about creating a life that is rich in joy, purpose, and fulfillment. It's about recognizing that we are worthy of our own care and attention, and that by honoring ourselves, we are better equipped to contribute positively to the world around us. One of the most significant obstacles to self love is societal pressure. We live in a world that often dictates how we should look, feel, and act, which can lead to a disconnection from our true selves. The relentless pursuit of unrealistic standards of beauty, success, and behavior can erode our self esteem and sense of worth. Recognizing that these societal expectations are not the benchmark for our value is the first step towards overcoming this barrier. One of the things we need to understand is that, they talk about different body types. Some people are meant to carry a heavier weight. Some are meant to be thin. We just got to learn to accept none of us are perfect. Beauty lies within, not around us, not what other people see, but how we treat each other and how we see ourselves and how we treat others. And remember this, you should treat people how you want them to treat you because you can't expect them to treat you any differently than they have shown, or rather, that you've shown them that you like to be treated by the way you treat them. So always remember, if you want to be treated good, you have to treat others the exact same way. Past traumas also play a crucial role in hindering self love. Traumatic experiences can leave deep seated scars that make it challenging to foster a positive self image. These experiences might include childhood neglect, abuse, or any form of emotional pain that has been fully processed. To overcome these traumas, it's essential to seek healing through therapy, support groups, and other forms of professional help. Healing allows us to reclaim our sense of self and build a loving relationship with who we are. Now, I grew up in an era when there were no laws governing the rights for people with disabilities. In fact, society pretended that there was no problem, that there was no such thing as a disability. People who were born with Down syndrome, it, the doctors just stuck them in institutions, and those institutions did nothing but tie them to the bed. They did nothing for them. It was only in the late 60s that you started to see things change. And a lot of that was, if you remember back in the 60s, when in the journalism field, they started looking for ways to hire people with minorities, so that you started seeing more people with a Spanish heritage come in to play in the journalistic field. And around that time, you also saw where they started going into the institutions and actually creating stories about how people with disabilities were being treated. And that was the beginning of the change in how society began to look at people with disabilities, because all of a sudden the government got into it and started regulating. The Individual Disability Education Act came into existence in the late 70s and took effect in the 80s. And I was actually in graduate school when all of these laws started coming into existence. And I had already been in the workforce for 12 years before the Americans with Disabilities Act became law. But in 1973, you had the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, which addressed things like employment, educate, accessibility. But with the Americans with Disabilities Act, you also got the clause which allowed people with disabilities, if they felt they were being discriminated against and they could prove discrimination, file lawsuits through the EEOC and Department of Justice. The problem is now, with this administration in 2025, we're seeing where they want to go back to how things were done, even in the 19th century, long before the 20th century. So you're going to see more and more discrimination come into play again. Negative self-talk is another common barrier. This internal critic can be relentless, often a byproduct of our experiences and the messages we've internalized over time. To combat this negativity, self-talk, we must become aware of these patterns and actively challenge techniques such as cognitive behavioral therapy, mindfulness, and positive affirmations can help rewire our thought processes and promote a more compassionate inner dialogue. And this is what I was addressing earlier when I talked about transactional analysis and the tapes that you use, the things you tell yourself that you've internalized, that you heard a parent or a teacher tell you. Because if you've got a teacher calling you dumb and stupid, then you believe you're dumb and stupid. And remember this, no two people learn alike. And for some people, repetition is the way they learn, because it's how things get into from short-term memory into long-term memory, which is how we learn. And people with Down syndrome can learn. They just have to keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. And let me explain to you this much. I have cerebral palsy, and a lot of things I've taught myself how to do because no one knew how to teach me how to do it. And for me, exercise became an important way because I had surgery when I was 14. And then my orthopedist said I only need to sleep with the brace, not wear it all the time. And and when I was young, I would go in and exercise, and it kept keep the balance. And I would find if I didn't exercise, my balance was much worse. But now, as I've gotten older, and once I hit my 60s, I decided it was important for me to start wearing a brace again so I walk better, because it also helped improve my balance. And I was at a point where no matter how much I exercised, it was still easy for me to trip over my own 2 feet. And the only way for me to walk properly without dragging my foot was to start wearing a brace again. And then because from falling so many years and having no fluid on my knee, developed arthritis, and now I wear a knee brace as well as the wall. And between both of them, it makes it much, much easier for me to stand up without pulling myself up and without having to just much, much easier. And as you can see, I'm also wearing a brace on my hand, but that's because my hand contracts, and when it contracts into a ball, I have no use of it. So I've had to learn how to compensate and adapt. But I've had to really learn to love myself as I am, because each of us are unique. No two people are alike. Even identical twins aren't perfectly alike. So understanding and treating each other with respect is the best way to interact with and treating people the way you want to be treated, by addressing the barriers with understanding and proactive strategies. Individuals can embark on a transformative journey towards embracing and cultivating self-love. Now let's talk about some of the practical steps to cultivate self-love. And remember, you are the one who has to decide whether or not you're going to love yourself as you are. Developing self-love is a journey that requires intention and practice. Here are some actionable strategies that can guide you to this path. Mindfulness practices. Mindfulness is about being present in the moment and observing your thoughts and feelings without judgment. Incorporate mindfulness into your daily routine through meditation, deep breathing exercises, or simply taking a few moments to be still and aware, using yoga as a form of meditation. And if you look at some of the Eastern philosophies, many of them talk about inner peace and how to get in touch with what's going on inside of you. And there's also certain exercises where you can tense up and to the point of feeling the tension and then slowly letting it out, and your breathing becomes a part of that, and actually understanding how to be attuned to your inner dialogue and recognize patterns of negative self-talk that need to be addressed. Self-care routines. Self-care is a vital component of self-love, and it's about taking the time to do things that nourish your body, mind, and soul. Create a self care routine that includes activities that you enjoy, such as reading, taking a warm bath, exercising, or preparing a healthy meal. Self care isn't selfish, it's necessary for maintaining your well being. Setting healthy boundaries. And this is another thing. And one thing I learned, that when my mother and my sister would gang up on me and try to make me the victim and put themselves in the persecutor and rescuer roles, I would break the pattern by turning around and walking away from them. And they didn't like that because they love to engage. It made them feel powerful to make you the victim. And if you understand when someone is doing that to you, the best thing you can do is cut them out of your life, because you don't need to be around negative people. And I knew what my mother was like, and I stayed as far away from her as I could. In fact, there were several times that I was homeless because I was new. Going back and living with her was never the answer, because then that gave her the power to constantly and barrage me with all these negative remarks and all this negativity. And I knew I was better off in the street. So that's how you set boundaries, because don't have a relationship with someone just to have a relationship with them. Make sure that they understand what the boundaries are, and the moment they cross it, that you have nothing to do with them. Boundaries are essential for protecting your energy and emotional health. Learn to say no to the demands that deplete you, and yes to the activities that fulfill you. Communicate your boundaries clearly and assertively without feeling guilty for prioritizing your needs. Setting boundaries is a way of signaling to yourself and others that you value and respect yourself. By integrating these strategies into your life, you can begin to build a stronger foundation of self love. Remember, self love is not a destination, but a continuous process of growth and self discovery. Embracing self love is not an overnight transformation, it's a continuous process that unfolds over time. It's important to approach this journey with patience and consistency. Just as a seed requires time to sprout and grow, self love develops through persistent care and nurturing. Each day, you have the opportunity to take small steps that reinforce your commitment to yourself, whether it's affirming your worth, practicing gratitude, or simply choosing to speak kindly to yourself. These consistent actions build a strong foundation of self love. There will be days when self love feels more challenging, and that's perfectly normal. It's on these days that your patience and commitment are most crucial. The gentle with yourself, understanding that growth often comes with ebbs and flows. By remaining steadfast in your self love practices, you'll find that over time, loving yourself becomes a more natural and integral part of who you are. The journey is one of the most rewarding investments you can make in yourself, leading to a more authentic, empowered, fulfilling life. Now, let's talk about the ripple effect of self love. Embracing self worth has profound impact on every aspect of your life. When you recognize and honor your intrinsic value, you unlock a level of confidence and self assurance that propels personal growth. This self empowerment can lead to take bold steps towards your goals and aspirations, resulting in professional success and fulfillment. With a strong sense of self worth, you're more likely to pursue opportunities that align with your passions and values rather than settling for less than you deserve. Self worth influences the quality of your relationships. It allows you to establish and maintain healthy boundaries, communicate effectively, and engage with others from a place of respect and equality. In the professional realm, it encourages you to negotiate for fair compensation, seek out meaningful work, and contribute your unique talents with confidence. As you cultivate self love and self worth, you become a beacon of positivity and strength in your community. By embodying the principles, you inspire others to embark on their own journey of self discovery and acceptance. Encourage your listeners, or rather, let's encourage you to become advocates for self love by sharing your experiences, supporting one another, and creating a space where open and honest conversations about self worth can flourish. Together, you can foster a culture that embraces individuality, nurtures growth, and uplifts everyone to reach your highest potential. Let's talk about Sarah, a client who struggled with self doubt and a harsh inner critic. She often felt unworthy of success and happiness, which held her back from her career and personal life. Through dedicated self love practices In daily affirmations and journaling her achievements, Sarah began to shift her mindset. She learned to celebrate her strengths and forgive her perceived weaknesses. This newfound self love empowered her to pursue a promotion at work, which she successfully obtained, and to enter a healthy, loving relationship. In summary of today's episode, we have done a deep dive into the essential journey to self love. We've explored the true meaning of self love, its role as the cornerstone of a fulfilling life. We've identified obstacles like societal pressures, past traumas, and negative self talk, and provided insights on how to overcome them. We've shared actionable strategies for cultivating self love, emphasizing the importance of mindfulness, self care, and settling healthy boundaries. We've also discussed the necessity of patience and consistency in our journey. We've seen how embracing self worth can positively influence all areas of life, from personal growth to professional achievements. And we've held inspiring stories of transformation. These narratives serve as a testimony to the power of self love. I invite you to engage in a self love challenge. Over the next week, dedicate a few minutes each day to write down 3 things that you appreciate about yourself. The simple activity can help reinforce a positive self perception and strengthen your journey to self love. So, thank you for joining me today in this transformative journey. If today's episode resonated with you, please share it with others who might benefit from embracing their self worth. Your support helps spread the message of self love far and wide. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we'll delve into the art of resilience and how to bounce back stronger from life's challenges. Until then, remember to honor your journey, embrace your worth, and continue to unlock your potential.